Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be doing my next wrap-up video where I will be discussing books 46 through 50 that I have read this year. So here we go. The first book that I have to talk about is Dreamland by Sarah Dessen. So as you know, I've been trying to read all of Sarah Dessen's books. I think this is the fourth one that I have gotten to, so I'm just about halfway done now, which is kind of exciting. I have such a strange relationship with her books because some of them, I feel like I either really like them or I really am not that into them. No matter which way I feel about them, there's always a strong message within them that leaves me thinking about them for longer than I do about some other books, so that's interesting. But anyway, Dreamland. So once again, we are following a main character who's not very sure of herself. She's trying to kind of find her way in the world and figure out who she is after her older sister has disappeared. Dreamland is definitely much darker than Sarah's previous novels that I've read so far. I don't know about the ones to come, but this one was definitely a lot darker. Our main character, Caitlin, ends up finding herself in an abusive relationship, so there is a trigger warning for that. That obviously is a big thing in this book, so Caitlin ends up kind of falling into the wrong crowd after she meets this boy named Rogerson, and the two of them end up starting to do drugs together, and he ends up starting to abuse her, and just feel horrible for her, and her parents don't really recognize what's going on because they're so preoccupied with her missing sister, and it's just so sad. Like, the whole thing was just really sad. This book for sure made me cry. It wasn't my favorite of Sarah's books so far, but it really, like I said, definitely got to me, and I definitely was crying while I was reading it. I thought the beginning half of it was kind of on the boring side, and then I started to get more invested in it, but I also just felt horrible while I was reading it because it's just not happy, uplifting story by any means. But in typical Sarah Dessen fashion, I really enjoyed the message that the book sent at the end after I got all of that crying out of the way. The one thing that I will say is that I feel like all of Sarah Dessen's heroines are a little bit interchangeable to me. There's not too much that differentiates one of them from another one. They all kind of have the same personality. I don't know if that changes as I will continue reading on, but that's what I found so far. So I ended up enjoying this one, but it wasn't my favorite, but I did really like the message, so I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. Next, I read Undead Girl Gang by Lily Anderson. This one I had been so highly anticipating because it just sounded like it was gonna check all of the boxes for me. Follows a girl named Camilla who is a Wiccan, and her best friend ends up showing up dead, and so do a couple of other girls that were in the popular group, and they couldn't stand them, and Camilla ends up using some necromancy to bring them back to life, but they're only going to be back to life for 7 days, and Camilla wants to figure out who it is that murdered them because she doesn't believe that it was a suicide, and she doesn't want the person that killed them to strike again. So while Camilla is definitely looking for revenge, the girls that come back to life seem to be kind of apathetic about finding their killer. They don't really seem to care that much, and they're like, we're already dead, like, whatever. But Camilla is really insistent upon no one else getting hurt. So I loved that the story was very quick paced, and I really liked Camilla's like no BS attitude, but it just overall, the book was just like missing something for me. I don't know if it was the writing style or something. It just didn't connect with me the way that I wanted it to, which I was really upset about because the premise is so good. I just wish the execution would have been a little bit better. But there was really great representation within the story, and it was really interesting to read about a Wiccan character. Like I said, I just didn't totally vibe with the writing of the book, but I did really enjoy it, and I thought that it had some really great moments within it. I think that if this were adapted into like a cheesy young adult horror film, I would love it, but just in writing, it didn't translate for me. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Next, I read Fireblood by Ellie Blee. This is the second book in the Frostblood saga, and the third and final book, Nightblood, is coming out in August, so I wanted to be all caught up in time for that, and I'm so glad that I read it because, oh my god, I really, really loved this book. It was so fantastic. I had really enjoyed Frostblood, but Fireblood just completely like blew it out of the water and surpassed all of my expectations. And sometimes the second book can be more of a struggle, but Fireblood, like, kicked Frostblood's butt. It was so good. So the story involves elemental magic like Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I obviously don't want to give away too much of what's going on in the second book because it is the sequel. But I will tell you that it focuses on frost and fire, and it follows our main character named Ruby, who is a Fireblood who lived in the Frost Nation, and her mother ended up getting murdered. She wasn't able to conceal her gift, and there was kind of a rebellion thing that was going on against the Frost King, and all of that happens at the very beginning of the first book, so I'm not spoiling anything there. What I will say is that these books definitely have tropes, but I feel like they're done really well, and I really loved the competition aspect of this novel and the training portion. I thought that was so well done, and it was really interesting to see Ruby learn more about her roots and find out more about her power. I thought that this book was like perfectly paced, and there's even a new character that I fell completely in love with, and I cannot wait to see how the story is going to conclude. It had such an exciting ending and such an exciting climax that I was like on the edge of my seat. It was fantastic, and I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman, and this is another book that I totally loved, and I also really loved it. I would say possibly a little bit more than Scythe, but not much more, because Scythe was also so good. So the main story, Scythe, again, this is the second book, so I don't want to give too much away. It follows 2 main characters, Rowan and Citra, and they're both apprentices to a scythe. They're learning to become scythes in this dystopian society where humans have overcome death, and the only way for someone to permanently die is for a scythe to glean them. And just all of the different philosophy that goes into it is really what captures my interest. So in the first book, we got a journal entry at the end of every chapter by one of the scythes about their time and just their thoughts and stuff. And this time around, we got journal entries from something completely different, and it was fascinating. Again, it had a lot of the things that I loved about the first book, like the politics between all of the different factions within the scythedom and the different ways that people choose to bend the rules, especially during the conclave meetings. And I really have to say that Thunderhead ended up going in a completely different direction than I was expecting, and I feel like I need the third book immediately. It ended on a huge cliffhanger, and I'm so glad that I read it, but also I'm like dying for the third book. Another thing that I just really love about this series is the writing is just so well done. It really draws you in. It's also written very uniquely and intelligently, and I just love it. Like, I can't get enough of it. And I ended up giving Thunderhead 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo, which I have been meaning to read forever, and I finally got to it. I'm so glad that I finally did. This is one of the books that I had in my predicting 5-star reads video, and sadly, it was not a 5-star read for me. I did enjoy it, but it definitely wasn't a new favorite of mine. So this book is a Little Mermaid retelling. It follows a main character named Lyra and also another main character named Alien. Lyra is essentially the Little Mermaid, Alien is essentially Prince Eric, and Lyra has been punished by her mother, the Sea Queen, for stealing a human prince's heart too early on before she was supposed to. So in order to make it up to her, she has turned Lyra into a human, taken away her siren song, and told her that she needs to capture the heart of Prince Alien without using her abilities in order to return to the queendom underneath the sea. Meanwhile, Prince Alien is not really looking forward to becoming the king of his kingdom. He really craves adventure. He is definitely a siren hunter, and he is hellbent on hunting for her because she is like this siren that has so much legend around her because she only takes princes' hearts. She always strikes around the same time every year, and all he wants to do is go out and find her and make sure that he can put an end to her so that the rest of his friends are safe. So the pair of them end up unwittingly teaming up with one another, not knowing who the other one is. And as I'm sure that you can imagine, things end up coming to a head toward the end of this novel. They end up going on this kind of quest in order to find something that they think will help them in each of their pursuits. While I did enjoy it, it just didn't live up to my expectations. I thought the story was entertaining, and I did enjoy how dark it got at some points, but I felt like it was just missing something that would have made it a favorite for me, and I ended up giving this one 3 stars. So those are all of the books that I have to talk about in this wrap up, and I will see you guys soon, probably with another wrap up because I have a lot more books to wrap up. But let me know if you read any of the books that I mentioned here, any of your thoughts on them, and I will see you guys soon in a new video. Bye!